but I made sure to sit down in front of my boob tube and fire up Triller TV. Shout out to our mutual friend, Mr. Mike Weber, and watch TripleMania 32. I was actually at TripleMania a couple of years ago in October in Mexico City. One of the best wrestling experiences of my life. I enjoyed seeing Alberto Del Rio in his return. I love seeing the former Dolph Ziggler, the real life Nick Nemeth, become the AAA mega champion. It was a really fun show, but without question, my favorite part of the entire show is Double J. You're out there, as a friend of ours might say, looking as only you can look. Look at that jacket. You look like a former president of the NWA. What was that goof's name?
Stanley Black. No, the
Bruce
NWA
Tharp or something like
oh,
that.
oh, yeah, okay, yeah, gotcha.
Well, he used to wear those gimmick jackets, and now here you are doing your best and coming out to Born in the USA with Satnam fucking Singh carrying an Indian flag. Crack me up. I loved it. Shout out to Larry Dallas and Joe Dabrowski who plugged our podcast a few times. But we got to see QT Marshall, who, by the way, is a real heat magnet down there, along with Parker Boudreaux, who I just want to plug. I know a lot of people have decided that they want to give up on this guy. If you watch that pay-per-view, you saw his 21st match. He hasn't wrestled in more than a year. His last match was March 3rd of 2023. He was wrestling like once a month for AEW or something like that. After he only had 6 matches in NXT. But this is a kid who's going to be a big deal one day. I believe in that. He's only 26 years old. He looks like an absolute monster, but he's only had 21 matches. So give him time, show a little patience. But maybe the real star of the match, besides yourself, and we're going to talk about that, was Sam Adonis. And I want to put him on everybody's radar. If you're not familiar with that name, go out of your way to see his work down there. The real life brother of Corey Graves. But man, he understands the business. He's in his early 30s. He's been wrestling since he was a teenager. So he's got like 20 years worth of experience or something crazy. I mean, it's really surprising to me that Sam has not gotten a shot with a major U.S. wrestling organization, but I guess he's carved himself out quite a successful niche in Mexico. He's a huge star down there,
buddy. And we've talked for months, and that a little tidbit of information. I didn't know this. Corey and Sam's father was an independent promoter in Pittsburgh. But man, when you talk about, and as we say here on the podcast, the story behind the story. The story behind the story is that if you watch that spectacle this past Saturday, but Sam was the glue, is what I like to call it. He's bilingual, but man, he is super good. And when you really understand Sam's, his journey, his pedigree, the things that he's done, as far as talking about a guy who, I can't even put it in words. I don't want to say just paying his dues. He did 2 to 3 years in the United Kingdom working for Brian Dixon and learning that style, and 150, 160 matches a year. And then when you go to Mexico, and he started in CMLL and went through, I'll call it the dojo or their training. But when you go into authentic, not kind of, I'm going to watch this on TV and try to wrestle like a luchador. I'm talking about, as people, the legendary stories, maybe the Heart Dungeon or going to a dojo in Japan. But when you really train lucha style, and I don't even want to call it the old school way, but I mean, really dig down into it. Sam has all of these skill sets. So he's, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" American, can go. And again, bilingual, I call it, this is probably appropriate on today's podcast, but a true ring general. And the old school terminology has kind of been lost, but a ring general is somebody who can do their job and everybody else's in the matches, at least help them do their job. And that's Sam. I can't say enough good things about him. He was super, definitely one of the super all-stars of it. And again, yes, he's carved out a niche down there. And here in the United States, independent promoters, I think, and I don't think Sam really works at marketing himself and all that, but me and Conrad will do that. I mean, he is a true, he knows how to wrestle professionally in a very, and I know this is kind of a jaded word at times. I say sports entertainment, but you have to bring the sport component, but also got to entertain it. And Sam, he can do it all. And Saturday night, it felt really good. All the pieces of the puzzle, and that image that you just showed there, Marcus, Satnam Singh for the first time wrestled without a shirt. Conrad, that
He's like
dude,
a monster.
I mean, he is a freaking monster. Look at him. And that gift that's going around on social media where Octagon Jr. and Laredo Kid dived at him. What a presence. What kind of, in a lot of ways, maybe a breakout appearance. I don't want to call it performance because, again, Satnam hadn't had that many matches either. But Parker and Satnam and QT, a pro's pro. But, man, Connie, it got wild in Monterey Saturday night.
I absolutely love the show. I want everybody to go out of their way to see it. I do want to talk a little bit more about what happened that night. But before we do, I want to reference your thing about Satnam. I was watching that show, and of course, you're standing next to him and saying, "Hey, cameraman, get that camera over here." Started his feet, doing the Andre shot, go the whole body. But when he came back, your positioning next to him is a spectacle that people should go out of their way to see. Because I know if you're watching this or you're listening at home and you think to yourself, hey, I'm sure Jeff Jarrett's a good sized guy, but he's not that big as a pro wrestler. I mean, look at all these other big guys. But seeing you in person, you get a scope for, compared to a normal human being, you're a large human. You're a big old jack fellow. And you're standing next to something that can't be described.
Yes.
And when you're sort of referencing, and I could just see like you pointing up, I mean, he knows when it's going to rain weeks before we do. This is a monster of a human being, and that spectacle just got all over me. And I was like, I even hit pause and I said, guys, do y'all see the comparison here? It was almost like that famous clip of Mean Gene standing next to Andre, and I think they had Andre standing on a box to make it even more crazy. But that's what the spectacle looked like for me in the moment. But that's not even the coolest thing about it. The coolest thing about it to me was, for the very first time, now I've heard about it, but I've never seen it. You're coming down to a chorus of boos, and boy, they hate your ass in Mexico. And I'm like, all right, Born in the USA, that's not really a patriotic song, but it's getting heat because they're booing. They're all waving American flags except for Satnam, who's got an Indian one. And then I looked in your hand and I said, is that what I think it is? And then there they go as you throw tortillas to the crowd. But then you threw one at Dorian's mom, Mrs. Pena.
Marcella.
This is the equivalent of someone throwing something in Linda McMahon's face. It's a big deal in wrestling, in TripleMania, or I've said that wrong, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
And then here she comes. Buddy, you got your ass whipped. She ran you out of town. Again, China 2.0, it happened. You got caught slipping. Now, granted,
Conrad, let's just stop right there.
Well, that's what happened.
Bobby Apache is, if there is a female wrestler that represents the brand of AAA, it's her.
Okay.
So I think she was highly offended for me just trying to serve some concessions to Mama Pena. I am an American who has stated many, many times before, American wrestling is better than Lucha Libre wrestling. American football or soccer is better than Mexican soccer. American baseball is much better than Mexican baseball. American food is much better than Mexican food. We're better in every category. But I do have some compassion. And when I go to the ring each and every time, all I'm doing is trying to throw. Now, look, I could throw candy out. Like if I went to the ring in the States and threw candy out, Connie, that would probably, oh man, Jeff's the candy man. He's throwing kids at the people. Isn't that nice? Well, that's what I'm doing in Mexico. I am trying to help the lowly Mexicans because it's all the same, whether it's Monterrey, Mexico City, Tampico, Chiapas, it doesn't really matter. Just trying to do that. And Mama Pena took high offense to that. She threw some kind of nasty spit water all over me. But then Fabi Apache, and I'll just leave this right here, Connie. Fabi Apache has a royal ass whooping coming. I promise you that. It won't be from a king, but she's got one coming. I can assure you that.